The wind moved cold and sharp through the streets of Springfield that morning, carrying with it the smell of rain and distant traffic. It was the kind of morning where people hurried inside buildings, collars pulled up, coffee cups clutched tightly. No one paid much attention to the small boy standing across the street from the police station. Except that he wasn't alone. Beside him sat a large German shepherd, his thick black and tan coat brushed neatly, posture straight, eyes alert. The dog looked disciplined, trained, different from ordinary pets tugging on leashes. His ears flicked at every passing sound. Even in retirement, he carried himself like an officer. 10-year-old Ethan Harper tightened his small fingers around the leather leash. His knuckles were pale from gripping too hard. He had rehearsed the sentence all night, over and over, whispering it into his pillow so his mother wouldn't hear. He swallowed. Across the street stood the building his father used to walk into every morning, back straight, uniform pressed, badge shining. Ethan could almost see him there now, laughing with the other officers before disappearing through the heavy glass doors. But today, his father wasn't walking in. Today, Ethan was. "Come on, Rex," he whispered. The dog rose immediately, falling into step beside him as they crossed the street. Cars slowed. One driver stared a little longer than usual. People recognized the dog. In this town, everyone did. Rex had once been the pride of the department. As Ethan approached the entrance, the automatic doors slid open with a soft mechanical hum. Warm air rushed over him, smelling faintly of coffee, printer ink, and floor cleaner. The familiar scent made his chest tighten. Inside, a few officers stood near the front desk, talking casually. One of them laughed, the sound echoing sharply in the tiled lobby. But the laughter faded the moment Rex stepped inside. Heads turned. Silence followed. "That's Harper's dog," someone muttered under their breath. Rex walked calmly, nails clicking lightly against the floor. His gaze scanned the room automatically, trained instincts still active. He didn't pull. He didn't hesitate. He moved like he belonged there. Because he once had. Ethan's heart hammered so loudly he was certain everyone could hear it. For a second, he considered turning around. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he should go home. But then he remembered his mother at the kitchen table the night before. Bills spread in front of her like scattered puzzle pieces that refused to fit. "I don't know how we're going to do this," she had whispered, thinking Ethan was asleep. That sentence had followed him into his dreams. Now standing in the lobby, he forced his feet forward. A tall sergeant near the counter stepped closer. His name tag read Lewis. He had known Ethan since he was a toddler, had once lifted him onto his shoulders during a department barbecue. "Hey there, buddy," Sergeant Lewis said gently, though confusion clouded his face. "What are you doing here?" Rex's tail wagged once when he saw Lewis, but he remained disciplined, sitting beside Ethan on command without being told. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The lobby felt too big, too bright, too quiet. He cleared his throat and tried again, voice trembling. "Sir." The word barely rose above a whisper. Lewis crouched slightly to hear him better. "It's okay, son, take your time." Ethan's fingers tightened on the leash again. He felt Rex's steady warmth beside him, strong, reassuring. The dog nudged Ethan's hand lightly, sensing his fear. And then the words finally escaped. "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" The sentence floated in the air like something fragile, something that shouldn't have been spoken. Every sound in the lobby stopped. A pin dropped somewhere in the background. One officer slowly removed his cap. Sergeant Lewis didn't respond immediately. His eyes moved from Ethan to Rex and back again. The question didn't make sense. Not in this building. Not about that dog. "By Rex," Lewis repeated carefully. Ethan nodded quickly as if afraid he might lose courage if he waited too long. "Yes, sir. He's trained, he's good, he listens. He can still work." His voice cracked on the last word. A female officer near the desk pressed her lips together, fighting emotion. She remembered the day Officer Daniel Harper had introduced Rex to the department, proud as if presenting a new family member. "Why would you want to sell him?" Lewis asked softly. Ethan hesitated. "Because we need money. Because Mom cries at night. Because food and vet visits cost too much. Because I can't fix this any other way." He didn't say all that. Instead, he said, "We need help." That was enough. Rex shifted slightly, leaning his body protectively against Ethan's leg. His intelligent eyes scanned the room, reading the tension. Though he couldn't understand the words, he understood something was wrong. The lobby doors opened again as another officer entered, then froze when he saw the scene unfolding. "What's going on?" he asked quietly. No one answered. Sergeant Lewis stood slowly. His jaw tightened, emotion flickering across his face. He had worked beside Daniel Harper for nearly a decade. They had shared late-night patrols, coffee breaks, and stories about their kids. Daniel had once said, "If anything ever happens to me, make sure Ethan grows up strong." Lewis had laughed it off. Nothing was supposed to happen. But it had. Lewis looked down at Ethan again, at the small shoulders trying to carry something far too heavy. "Stay right here," he said gently. He turned and walked toward the hallway leading to the captain's office. The seconds that followed felt endless. Officers pretended to shuffle papers, but no one truly moved. All eyes remained on Ethan and Rex. One older officer approached cautiously. "Hey, boy," he murmured to Rex, kneeling slightly. "You remember me?" Rex sniffed his hand and gave a soft huff of recognition. His tail wagged once polite but restrained. Ethan watched all of them carefully. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't embarrassed. He was determined. If selling Rex meant saving their house, he would do it, even if it hurt, even if it felt like letting go of the last piece of his father. The hallway door opened. Footsteps approached. Captain Morales stepped into the lobby. He was a broad-shouldered man with graying hair and a presence that commanded quiet respect. The moment he saw Rex, his expression changed, surprise giving way to something deeper. Then he noticed Ethan. The captain walked forward slowly, taking in the scene, the silent officers, the tension in the air, the boy standing too still for his age. He stopped a few feet away. "Ethan," he said softly. The boy straightened instinctively, just as his father had taught him when addressing a superior officer. "Yes, sir." Morales glanced at Sergeant Lewis, who gave a small nod, silently explaining everything without words. The captain looked back at Ethan. "I'm told you have something to ask." Ethan's throat tightened again. This was it, the moment. He lifted his chin slightly, trying to be brave the way his father always had. "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" This time, his voice didn't tremble. It broke. And in that break, in that small crack of a child trying to be strong, every officer in the room felt something shift inside them. Rex sat perfectly still beside him, loyal as ever. Waiting, unaware that the answer about to come would change far more than any of them expected. Long before the question in the lobby of the police station in Springfield left officers speechless, there had been a partnership that people in town spoke about with pride. Officer Daniel Harper and his K-9 partner, Rex, were more than a team. They were a symbol. Daniel had met Rex 5 years earlier at a regional K-9 training facility outside Chicago. Rex had been younger then, powerful, sharp-eyed, restless with energy. Many handlers had considered him too intense, too driven. Daniel saw something different. "He's not aggressive," Daniel had said during evaluation. "He's focused." That single word changed everything. From the first day of training, the bond formed quickly. Rex responded to Daniel's voice with unusual precision. Commands were crisp. Movements were synchronized. Within weeks, instructors noticed that Rex watched Daniel constantly, waiting for the smallest cue. At night, while other handlers rested, Daniel often stayed behind in the training yard, running extra drills. "Why push so hard?" another officer once asked. Daniel had smiled, because one day this dog might save someone's life. He had no idea how many times that would come true. Back in Springfield, the pair quickly earned respect. During narcotics searches, Rex's accuracy was unmatched. During suspect pursuits, he moved like a silent shadow beside Daniel. But it wasn't just criminals they chased. One winter evening, a call came in about a missing teenage boy lost in a wooded park after dark. Temperatures were dropping fast. Snow had begun to fall. Search teams were struggling. Daniel clipped Rex's harness in place and knelt in front of him. "Find him," he whispered. Rex took off instantly, nose low, body cutting through snowdrifts. Daniel followed closely behind, flashlight beam shaking across tree trunks. Nearly 40 minutes later, Rex barked sharply twice. Daniel found the boy curled against a fallen tree, shivering and barely conscious. If they had arrived 30 minutes later, doctors said, the outcome might have been very different. The next morning, local headlines praised the K-9 unit, but Daniel didn't care about attention. He went home, knelt beside Ethan in their living room and said, "Rex did good work last night." Ethan had thrown his arms around the dog's neck proudly. From that day on, Ethan believed Rex was a hero. Years passed. Rex grew stronger, more disciplined. Daniel grew more respected within the department. Captain Morales often relied on him during high-risk calls. "He's steady," Morales would say, "and that dog trusts him with his life." Trust went both ways. Then came the night everything changed. It was late autumn. Rain fell steadily over Springfield, slicking the streets with reflections of red and blue patrol lights. Daniel had just finished paperwork when a call came in about a multi-vehicle collision on the highway. Reports suggested injuries. Traffic was blocked. Daniel responded immediately. "Be safe," Morales had told him before he left. Daniel gave a quick nod. Rex remained at home that night. It was Daniel's off K-9 shift, just routine traffic response. Or so it seemed. The highway was chaotic. Emergency lights flashed wildly through the rain. Daniel helped direct vehicles away from the wreckage, ensuring paramedics had space to work. Witnesses later said he was calm, focused, moving carefully between lanes. Then, without warning, a speeding vehicle lost control on the wet pavement. The driver never saw Daniel. The impact was sudden, violent. Sirens blurred into shouting voices. Officers rushed forward. Rain mixed with blood and flashing lights. Daniel was transported immediately to the nearest hospital. Word spread through the department in minutes. Back at home, Ethan had been asleep on the couch when his mother's phone rang. The moment she answered, her face drained of color. At the hospital, officers filled the waiting room, uniforms soaked from rain, faces grim. Rex, who had been left in the backyard earlier that evening, grew restless when Daniel didn't return. He paced, whined softly. When the door finally opened and another officer entered without Daniel, Rex knew something was wrong. They brought him to the hospital. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Nurses moved quietly. Machines beeped behind closed doors. Rex pulled gently toward Daniel's room, but was stopped at the entrance. He sat down instead. And waited. For hours. When the doctor finally stepped out, no one needed words. The expression said everything. Officer Daniel Harper did not survive his injuries. The news shattered the room. Ethan clung to his mother, confused by the sudden wave of grief. He looked around at grown men, officers he had always seen as unbreakable, now wiping tears from their faces. Rex remained seated by the door. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He simply stared at the closed entrance, ears slightly lowered, as if expecting Daniel to step out at any moment. He waited long after everyone else understood. The funeral days later was one of the largest the town had seen in years. Officers from neighboring counties attended. Flags lined the streets of Springfield. Bagpipes echoed through the gray sky. Rex walked slowly beside the casket, guided gently by Sergeant Lewis. Ethan held the leash. People wept openly as the German shepherd rested his head briefly against the polished wood, as if saying goodbye. Captain Morales delivered the eulogy. "Daniel Harper served this city with honor, courage, and heart," he said, voice steady but heavy. "And he did so knowing that family, both at home and in uniform, is everything." Ethan stood beside his mother, gripping Rex's leash tightly. He didn't fully understand death, but he understood absence. After the funeral, the department faced another painful reality. Rex was nearing retirement age. Without Daniel as his handler, department policy required evaluation. Training a new handler for an aging K-9 was difficult. Budget constraints made things harder. The official paperwork was processed quietly. Rex would retire. But Rex didn't understand paperwork. He understood routine. He understood patrol cars and early mornings and Daniel's voice. At home, in the weeks that followed, Rex often lay beside the front door at night, listening for footsteps that never came. He searched the house once or twice, checking rooms methodically. When Ethan cried quietly in his bedroom, Rex lay outside the door until the sobbing stopped. The bond shifted. Rex no longer had a handler. He had a boy who needed protecting. And Ethan no longer had his father. He had his father's dog. But grief has a way of intertwining with reality. Bills began arriving. Insurance covered some costs, not all. Daniel had been the primary income. Overtime shifts were gone. Savings dwindled faster than expected. Ethan noticed things children usually don't. His mother skipping meals. Lights turned off more often. The quiet tension at the dinner table. One night as Rex rested his head on Ethan's lap, Ethan asked softly, "Do you miss him too?" Rex's ears twitched. Ethan wrapped his arms around the dog's neck. "I'll take care of you," he whispered. But weeks later, overhearing his mother's worried voice, Ethan began to question whether he could keep that promise. And so the idea formed. Simple in a child's mind. If Rex was valuable, maybe he could help. Maybe selling him wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was sacrifice. By the time Ethan stood in the police station lobby, asking that impossible question, none of the officers there knew the full weight of the journey that had led him to that moment. But Captain Morales did remember something clearly. On Daniel's last night at the station, before responding to the highway call, he had paused at the door and said jokingly to Morales, "If anything ever happens to me, make sure my boys are looked after." Morales had rolled his eyes. "Nothing's happening to you." Daniel had smiled. Now, standing in that silent lobby, looking at Ethan and Rex together, Morales felt the echo of those words pressing against his chest. "Make sure my boys are looked after." The past and present collided in that instant. And the answer forming in the captain's mind was not one written in policy. It was written in loyalty. After the funeral, life in Springfield did not stop. Cars still moved down Main Street. Children still waited for school buses. The sun still rose each morning over quiet neighborhoods, but inside the Harper home, everything felt different, slower, heavier, as if the walls themselves understood something was missing. Daniel Harper's patrol boots still sat by the front door. His coffee mug remained in the cabinet. His voice no longer filled the rooms. Ethan noticed the silence first. It was louder than anything. Rex noticed it too. The German Shepherd had adjusted his routine. No more early morning patrol shifts. No more waiting beside a police cruiser. Instead, he followed Ethan from room to room, lying down wherever the boy stopped. If Ethan sat at the kitchen table doing homework, Rex rested at his feet. If Ethan watched television, Rex positioned himself between the couch and the front door, as if guarding both. But protection didn't stop bills from arriving. They came in white envelopes stacked neatly at first, then less neatly. Insurance covered part of Daniel's funeral. Some benefits came from the department. But Daniel had worked overtime regularly, and without those extra shifts, the family income dropped sharply. Ethan didn't understand financial numbers. He understood tone. He heard it in his mother's voice when she spoke on the phone. "I'll make the payment next week." "Yes, I understand. I'm doing my best." Late at night, when she thought he was asleep, he heard her crying quietly in the kitchen. Rex heard it too. One evening, Ethan walked into the living room and found his mother sitting at the table, staring at a stack of papers. She quickly wiped her eyes when she saw him. "Everything's okay," she said automatically. He nodded, pretending to believe her. But that night, lying in bed, Ethan stared at the ceiling and thought about promises. He had promised Rex he would take care of him. But what if taking care of him meant letting him go? The next morning at school, his teacher mentioned a fundraising event for a class trip. Kids talked about selling cookies and lemonade. Ethan's thoughts drifted somewhere else. Rex had been a top K-9 officer, highly trained, skilled, valuable. Valuable. The word echoed in his mind. After school, he stopped by the garage and opened one of his father's old storage bins. Inside were photographs, Daniel in uniform, Rex at his side, medals, commendation certificates, newspaper clippings about successful operations. One headline read, "Local K-9 unit tracks armed suspect in record time." There was Rex, strong and proud. Ethan traced the photo gently. "If I sell him," he whispered to the empty garage, "it's not because I don't love him." Rex stood in the doorway, watching him quietly. Over the next few days, Ethan began observing things more carefully. He noticed the price of dog food when his mother added it to the grocery cart. He saw her hesitate before placing it inside. He overheard a conversation with a veterinarian about upcoming checkups. "Is there any kind of discount?" his mother asked softly. That was the moment something solidified in Ethan's chest. He didn't feel like a child anymore. He felt responsible. That night, he knelt beside Rex in his bedroom. "You're strong," he told the dog. "You could still work. They'd take good care of you." Rex tilted his head slightly, listening to the tone more than the words. Ethan wrapped his arms around the dog's thick neck. "I just want Mom to stop crying." Rex leaned into him, warm and steady. The following Saturday morning, Ethan woke earlier than usual. The house was quiet. Sunlight barely filtered through the blinds. He dressed carefully, jeans, a clean hoodie. He brushed Rex's coat thoroughly, smoothing every strand. He even polished the old K-9 badge that had been attached to Rex's ceremonial collar during the funeral. His hands trembled as he clipped the leash on. At the kitchen counter, he left a note. "Taking Rex for a walk, be back soon, love you." He didn't mention where. The air outside felt cold but clear. Rex walked calmly beside him, unaware of the decision forming in the boy's mind. Each step toward the police station felt heavier. Halfway there, Ethan paused at the small park where his father used to throw a ball for Rex after shifts. The grass still carried faint dew. Memories seemed to linger in every corner. "You'd want to help us," Ethan whispered. Rex wagged his tail gently, thinking it was playtime. They resumed walking. As the police station building came into view, Ethan's stomach twisted. He almost turned back, but then he pictured the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen table. He kept walking. Inside the station lobby, moments before he asked the question that silenced the room, Ethan's heart pounded so hard he felt dizzy. After speaking those words, "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" he felt something unexpected. Relief. The secret was no longer his alone. But as Captain Morales stepped into the lobby and listened, Ethan began to realize something else. The officers weren't looking at Rex like merchandise. They were looking at him like memory, like family. While waiting for the captain's response, Ethan's thoughts raced. What if they refused? What if they agreed immediately? What if they took Rex away right then? His throat tightened at that possibility. He hadn't fully imagined the moment of separation. He knelt beside Rex and pressed his forehead against the dog's head, just briefly. "You'll be okay," he whispered softly, voice barely audible. Sergeant Lewis noticed. His chest ached at the sight. Lewis remembered Daniel teaching Ethan how to hold the leash properly when he was younger. "Firm but gentle," Daniel had said. "Leadership isn't about force." Now the boy held the leash firmly, but his hands were shaking. Captain Morales exchanged a look with Lewis. No one spoke yet. In the silence, memories filled the room of Daniel's laughter, of Rex's first successful track, of late-night coffee shared between shifts. Ethan sensed the weight of that silence, but misunderstood it. He thought they were calculating Rex's worth. He didn't realize they were measuring loyalty. From the corner of the room, a younger officer quietly wiped his eyes. He had been a rookie when Daniel mentored him. "He treated me like family," the officer whispered under his breath. The word hung there. Family. Ethan's gaze shifted around the lobby. These weren't strangers. They were men and women who had attended his birthday parties, who had visited their home for barbecues, who had brought casseroles after the funeral. Suddenly, the idea of selling Rex felt different. Not wrong, but complicated. He wasn't just offering a trained dog. He was offering a piece of shared history. Captain Morales finally stepped closer. "Ethan," he said gently. The boy looked up. "Did your mom ask you to do this?" Ethan shook his head quickly. "No, sir." "Does she know you're here?" Another shake. Morales inhaled slowly. He understood now. This wasn't about money alone. It was about a child trying to carry adult burdens. Rex shifted again, pressing against Ethan protectively, sensing the emotional storm. In that moment, Captain Morales realized something profound. Daniel Harper had raised his son to be brave. Perhaps too brave. The captain glanced around the room at the silent officers. The decision forming in his mind would not be simple. Policies existed, budgets were tight, procedures had to be followed. But some moments demanded more than procedure. Ethan stood there, small but determined, waiting for an answer that would shape his world. He believed he was sacrificing something precious. He didn't yet understand that sometimes asking for help is not weakness. It's courage. And as the silence stretched, Captain Morales prepared to speak, knowing whatever he said next would not just answer a question. It would define who they were as a department, and whether Daniel Harper's final unspoken wish would truly be honored. The lobby of the Springfield police station felt impossibly large that morning, though it had always been the same. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, echoing faintly against the linoleum floors. Officers shuffled papers, pretended to check radios, and cleared throats. But everyone's attention was on the boy and the German shepherd standing in the middle of the room, Ethan and Rex. Captain Morales stood a few steps away, watching intently. He noticed the tension in the boy's small frame, the grip on the leash, the way Rex's ears flicked nervously. "Ethan," Morales said slowly, his voice calm but firm. "You said what?" "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" Ethan repeated, his voice small but steady. The words seemed to hang in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore. There was a brief pause, a long one. Some officers shifted uncomfortably. Others felt tears prick behind their eyes. Rex, trained for danger and alert for every command, simply sat at Ethan's side, watching. He had been through countless operations, faced armed suspects and tracked criminals in freezing conditions. Yet here he was, waiting patiently beside a boy, sensing the tension, sensing the unknown. "By Rex," Captain Morales repeated, disbelief clear in his tone. He stepped closer, lowering his hands to rest lightly on his belt. "Son, tell me why." Ethan swallowed hard. He looked down at his shoes, then back at the floor. We need money, sir. Mom, she's worried. I thought maybe you could help." His voice cracked at the last word. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Officers shifted awkwardly, unsure how to respond. It wasn't policy, procedure, or protocol. It was something far more human, a child asking for help, a plea that carried years of love, loyalty, and loss. Sergeant Lewis stepped closer, kneeling to Ethan's level. His eyes softened as he spoke. "Ethan, why would you think we could buy Rex?" The boy looked up, eyes glossy. "Because he's valuable, he's trained, he could work. I thought maybe if he could help you, it could help us." No one spoke immediately. The words were practical, childlike logic layered with pain. Yet, underlying it, was a profound devotion to family, to memory, to a dog who had been his father's partner in every way that mattered. Rex nudged Ethan's hand gently, sensing the boy's fear. He had always been loyal to Daniel. Now, by extension, he was loyal to Ethan. He had learned what mattered most. It wasn't obedience or skill. It was heart. Captain Morales exchanged a glance with Sergeant Lewis. Both men knew the boy didn't fully understand the weight of his question. He didn't understand that Rex wasn't just an animal. He was a living reminder of Daniel Harper's courage, his life, and his service to the city. The captain walked slowly toward the center of the room. Officers instinctively straightened. Even the younger recruits, normally chatty, hushed themselves. "You didn't talk to your mother about this?" Morales asked, voice softer now. "No, sir," Ethan whispered. "Does she know you're here?" "No, sir." Morales took a deep breath. Memories of Daniel flooded his mind, the night he had trained a rookie officer in hand-to-hand defense, the countless times he had stayed late to help paperwork, the laughter shared during brief coffee breaks at the station. Daniel's absence still ached in every corner of the department. And now, his son was standing there, shoulders tense, asking for something that should never have been asked of a child. Lewis put a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Son, you've done a brave thing by coming here, but Rex isn't for sale." Ethan's eyes widened, heart skipping a beat. Not for sale." "No," Morales said firmly, kneeling slightly to meet Ethan's gaze. "We don't buy family." The words were simple, yet the weight behind them resonated through the lobby like a hammer striking steel. Every officer understood. They were witnessing loyalty and honor in its purest form. Ethan blinked, trying to process. Relief began to wash over him, though confusion lingered. He had expected a transaction, a deal, maybe even rejection. Instead, he received something he hadn't fully anticipated: respect and understanding. Rex pressed closer to Ethan, sensing the sudden shift in emotion. He wagged his tail slightly, leaning into the boy's legs, grounding him. The German Shepherd had been trained for life-and-death situations, but now he was here for comfort, stability, and love. Captain Morales straightened and spoke to the assembled officers. "Everyone, I want to make this clear: Rex is not going anywhere. He will remain part of our family. We'll ensure he's taken care of, and Ethan and his mother will receive the support they need." Murmurs of agreement and soft nods filled the room. Some officers' eyes glistened. The department had lost one of its finest officers. They would not allow the boy who carried his father's legacy to feel alone. Ethan finally exhaled, shoulders relaxing. He knelt slightly, hugging Rex around the neck. The dog leaned into him, head resting gently against the boy's cheek. It was a moment of pure connection, human and canine, tied together by loss, love, and loyalty. The officers moved around them quietly, some bending down to pat Rex, others whispering congratulations. Sergeant Lewis leaned close to Ethan. "Your dad would be proud," he said softly. Ethan nodded, tears welling up. "I hope so," he whispered. Rex barked softly, almost in agreement. It was as if he understood the boy's unspoken words, that he had tried his best, that he had acted out of love and responsibility. Captain Morale stepped back, letting the moment breathe. He knew the media would eventually hear about this. The town would read about it, talk about it. But for now, this moment was theirs, a reminder of why they served, what they protected, and what family truly meant. Finally, Morales turned to the officers. "We'll organize a plan to support Ethan and his family," he said. "But right now, give them a moment. They deserve that." The lobby began to settle. The boy hugged Rex once more before standing. Together, they walked toward the exit, shoulders lighter, hearts steadier. Officers saluted. Some nodded. Others simply watched in quiet reverence. As Ethan stepped outside, the sunlight felt warmer than usual. The wind still moved through the streets, but it no longer carried the weight of fear or uncertainty. It carried hope. And behind him, Rex walked with calm authority, as if the dog himself understood that life, though marked by loss, could still hold loyalty, love, and the promise of better days. For Ethan, the decision he thought he had to make alone had already been made for him. And for the officers who had known Daniel Harper, it was a reminder that true courage, honor, and family were not measured by rank or badge, but by heart. Outside the station, a small crowd had begun to gather, neighbors, former colleagues, and some who had overheard the story. Whispers spread. "That's Harper's boy." And Rex, the community, though not fully understanding the details, felt the weight of what had just happened inside those walls. Ethan looked down at Rex. The dog's eyes met his, steady, unwavering, loyal. And for the first time since the accident, Ethan felt a flicker of peace. A boy, a dog, a family, and a community that refused to let either feel abandoned. This moment marked not the end, but a turning point, the first step in a journey that would bind the Harper family, the dog, and the department together in ways none of them had imagined. The lobby of the Springfield police station had returned to a quiet hum after Ethan and Rex had stepped outside. Officers busied themselves with paperwork, radios, and casual chatter, but Captain Morales remained near the front desk, his mind far away. He could still feel the echo of the boy's words. "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" Morales leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. Memories of Daniel Harper, the man who had been like a younger brother to him, returned vividly. He remembered Daniel's first day on the force, eager, polite, confident, always smiling despite the long nights and dangerous calls. He remembered the countless times Daniel had volunteered for extra shifts, sometimes to train new officers, sometimes to help clean the station. And of course, he remembered the way Daniel had bonded with Rex from the very first day. They were inseparable, a unit perfected through years of work, trust, and mutual respect. Morales opened his eyes and stared at Rex, sitting obediently outside the station with Ethan beside him. The German Shepherd had seen more danger than most officers in the department. He had faced armed suspects, tracked missing children, and even saved lives during narcotics operations. And yet, Rex now sat quietly, alert but calm, protecting the boy who was his father's legacy. "Captain," Sergeant Lewis said quietly, approaching him, "you okay?" Morales nodded slowly. "I'm fine, just remembering." Lewis nodded in understanding. We all miss him. It's been hard for everyone." "It's more than that," Morales replied, his voice low. "We failed him in a way. We lost a good man and didn't get a chance to prepare his family for this." Lewis sighed. "You mean Ethan and his mom?" "Yes, we trained him, we relied on him, we watched him work miracles, and now his family is struggling." Morales stood and began packing. "Ethan doesn't understand what he asked, but he's a smart kid. He thinks he's solving a problem by offering to sell Rex, and he's scared." Lewis followed him, matching his slow pace. "He's brave too, just like his dad." Morales paused near the window, looking out at the small crowd that had begun gathering outside. Neighbors, colleagues, curious passers-by. Some had heard the story through whispered conversations. Some had caught sight of Ethan and Rex walking toward the station earlier. "They don't know," Morales said quietly. "They don't know what Daniel did, the lives he saved, the times he risked his own for people he barely knew. Rex saved lives too, and now the boy stands there thinking he has to sell him to survive." Lewis looked down at his shoes. "It's our fault in part. We should have checked on the family. After the funeral, we assumed things were okay." "Exactly." Morales' voice grew firmer. "We didn't, and now Ethan carries a weight that no child should have to bear." The two men looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They both knew what needed to happen, not a transaction, not a sale, not a policy decision. This was about honor, loyalty, and family. Morales took a deep breath and called over Officer Ramirez, a younger K-9 handler. "Get the team together. We're going to do something for Ethan and his family, something they won't forget." Ramirez raised an eyebrow. "Sir." Morales smiled faintly. "Just do it, trust me." Meanwhile outside, Ethan and Rex stood together quietly. The boy didn't know what to expect next. He had come prepared for rejection, for his heart to break, for the officers to take Rex from him. But the calm authority in Captain Morales' voice had reassured him, even if he didn't understand why. Rex leaned against Ethan, tail wagging softly. The dog had always understood emotions better than people, and now he sensed the boy's anxiety, fear, and hope all at once. Back inside, Morales gathered a few officers in a small conference room. "We need a plan," he began. "Ethan's mother is struggling. Bills, rent, medical expenses, we need to cover that. And Rex, he's not going anywhere. But we can't just let a child think he has to sell him to survive. That would be wrong." Officer Jenkins, one of the veterans, nodded. "We could set up a fund. The department can contribute and we can let the community know. That way, they won't feel alone." Morales smiled faintly. "Yes, and more than that, we need to honor Daniel and Rex properly. Make sure the boy sees that they're both heroes, that their family isn't forgotten." Another officer, a K-9 handler named Carter, spoke up. "Rex is loyal to Ethan now. We should consider him an honorary K-9 officer. That way, he stays part of the department officially, and we take care of him." Morales nodded slowly, his mind racing. "Exactly. And let's make sure the boy knows that Rex doesn't belong to sale or trade. He belongs to family, and family looks out for one another." He paused, thinking of Daniel. He had never spoken about his fears with anyone else in the department, but now he felt them acutely. "We owe him this, and we owe it to Ethan to make sure he knows he's not alone." Lewis leaned back, his hands folded. "You know, Captain, seeing that boy with Rex today, it reminded me of all the times Daniel saved lives, and how Rex always followed his lead. I think it's time the department followed theirs." Morales' lips curved slightly. "You're right, and it starts here. We do this together for Daniel, for Rex, and for Ethan. And when the town hears about it, they'll see what family really means." At that moment, Ramirez entered, holding a notebook filled with names of officers and community members who could help. Morales took it, glancing at the list. Veterans, local businesses, even former colleagues from Daniel's previous assignments, all willing to support the Harper family. Morales smiled faintly. "It's bigger than us," he said quietly. "Bigger than one department. This is about community, loyalty, and honor, and I intend to make sure Ethan understands that." Meanwhile, outside, Ethan tugged gently on Rex's leash, unaware that the officers were forming a plan. He had no idea that his small act of courage, asking a question he thought was impossible, had already set in motion a wave of support that would change his life. Rex nudged Ethan's hand, as if sensing the boy's worry. The dog had always known how to reassure those he loved, and now he did so silently, waiting for the next step. Inside the station, Morales and the officers began preparing letters, contacting the community and discussing logistics. They planned a way to support Ethan's family financially, make Rex an honorary K-9, and honor Daniel's legacy publicly. No one had asked for recognition. No one expected gratitude. But the department knew what mattered most: protecting the family of a fallen officer, honoring loyalty, and ensuring no child felt alone while carrying the weight of loss. As the morning turned to afternoon, the first steps of action had already begun. Volunteers had been contacted. Community members had offered help. Local media would soon hear about the story, but Morales intended to control the narrative. It would not be about pity. It would be about respect, honor, and courage. And through it all, Ethan and Rex remained outside, unaware that their lives were about to change in ways neither of them could imagine. Because some stories, the ones that truly touch the heart, are about more than just loss. They are about loyalty, about family, about a community that refuses to let one of its own suffer in silence. And in the case of Ethan and Rex, it was about a young boy's courage sparking a chain reaction that would remind everyone that heroes, and the bonds they create, never truly disappear. The lobby of the Springfield police station had returned to a quiet hum, but inside, time seemed suspended. Ethan stood frozen, clutching Rex's leash, unsure if the world was about to shatter or if it might, somehow miraculously, heal. Captain Morales had stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes scanning the small boy and the dog who had been the pride of the department for so many years. The silence in the room was deafening. Every officer, from rookies to veterans, sensed that something monumental was about to happen. "Ethan," Morales began slowly, his voice firm yet gentle, "you came here today with courage." Ethan's small chest rose and fell rapidly. He had rehearsed what he would say to anyone in authority, expecting skepticism or outright refusal. He hadn't expected understanding. "You thought you had to sell Rex to help your family," Morales continued, taking a slow step closer. "And you came here because you believed it was the only way." The boy nodded, eyes wide. I didn't know what else to do, sir." Morales's gaze softened. "I understand, and I want you to know something important. What you did took bravery, not the kind that requires a badge or years on the force, the kind that comes from love and responsibility. You acted out of loyalty. You acted like your father." Ethan blinked, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. "You don't need to sell Rex," Morales said finally, his tone ringing with authority. "Rex is not for sale, he is not property, and neither is your father's legacy." The room seemed to exhale. Officers shifted, some fighting tears, others smiling. Sergeant Lewis rested a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Do you hear that, son? Rex is yours, you're not alone." Ethan's hands trembled on the leash. "Really, sir?" "Really," Morales confirmed. "And more than that, the department will take care of him. We'll ensure he has everything he needs for the rest of his life. Food, medical care, everything." Rex, sensing the shift in energy, wagged his tail gently. He stepped closer to Ethan, resting his head against the boy's leg. The German Shepherd had always understood loyalty and courage, and now he seemed to understand relief. But Morales wasn't finished. He turned to the gathered officers. "And as a department, we're going to do more. Ethan and his mother will receive support, not because anyone feels pity, because this is family. Daniel Harper served this city with courage, honor, and heart. Now it's our turn to serve his family in return." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Some officers nodded solemnly. Others quietly wiped tears from their eyes. The weight of the moment, the loss, the loyalty, the bravery, was shared by everyone present. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I didn't know, I didn't think anyone would understand," he whispered. Morales knelt slightly, meeting the boy's gaze. "You did the right thing by asking. You reminded us all what matters most: courage, family, and loyalty. Those are the things that can't be sold. They can't be traded. They have to be honored." The words seemed to wrap around Ethan like a warm blanket. For the first time in weeks, he felt the tension in his chest ease. He knelt beside Rex, hugging the dog tightly. Rex leaned into him, steady and unwavering, as if confirming the truth of Morales' words. Outside, the first few neighbors who had gathered sensed something extraordinary had occurred. Whispers spread like wildfire. "That's Harper's boy and Rex. They stayed together." Some of the neighbors knew Daniel personally, others had only heard stories. But everyone understood. Something rare and profound had just taken place. Morales straightened and addressed the officers again. "We will make Rex an honorary lifetime K-9 officer. He will be part of this department officially, and we will support Ethan and his mother in any way possible. Today is about loyalty, honor, and family. Today, we act on values that Daniel Harper lived by every day." Officer Carter, one of the K-9 handlers, smiled broadly. "Honorary officer. He's earned it. And Ethan will see that he's part of the family, not because of a badge, but because of what he represents." Lewis added, "We'll make sure the community knows, too. Support from neighbors, local businesses, anyone who wants to help. Daniel's family won't feel alone." Ethan didn't fully understand the scale of what Morales had announced, but he understood enough to feel hope. Tears ran down his cheeks, and he buried his face in Rex's neck. The dog licked his hair gently, reassuring him silently. Morales watched the boy and dog, heart swelling with pride and emotion. He knew the story would reach beyond Springfield. He knew people would read about it, share it, and admire the bravery of a young boy and a loyal dog. But the captain didn't care about recognition. He cared about the moment, about the boy's fear transforming into relief, and about the dog remaining by his side. "This isn't just about Rex," Morales continued, voice firm. "It's about remembering Daniel Harper, the man, the officer, the father. We honor him by caring for his family, and by ensuring that his legacy of courage and loyalty continues." The officers nodded solemnly. Many of them had lost friends in the line of duty, had felt helpless at times, and understood the weight of what Morales was saying. Today they could act. Today they could make a difference. Ethan's mother, who had been called to the station quietly, arrived just as Morales was finishing his address. Her eyes widened at the sight of her son and Rex, standing together, smiling and relieved. She had expected bad news. Instead, she found understanding, compassion, and support from an entire department. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged Ethan tightly. "Oh, Ethan, you didn't have to do this alone," she whispered. Ethan hugged her back, still holding Rex close. "I thought I had to," he admitted softly, "but they helped Mom." Morales smiled quietly from across the room, feeling the burden that had weighed on the boy's shoulders finally lifting. The department had acted not out of duty alone, but out of humanity. And in that, Morales knew they had honored both the past and the present. Outside, neighbors began approaching, some offering small gifts, some simply words of support. Someone from the local bakery handed Ethan a small bag of cookies. Another neighbor offered a donation to cover part of Rex's care. The community, inspired by the courage of one boy and the loyalty of one dog, stepped forward instinctively. Inside, Morales and the officers began making arrangements, formal paperwork to make Rex an honorary K-9. plans to provide financial support for the Harper family, and preparations for a small ceremony to publicly honor Daniel's service and Rex's ongoing loyalty. Ethan, exhausted but elated, knelt beside Rex, whispering softly, "We're going to be okay, boy. Really okay." Rex pressed his nose gently into Ethan's hand, as if agreeing. The German Shepherd had been through countless dangerous situations with his father, but perhaps this, protecting and comforting a child, was his most important mission yet. For Captain Morales, the moment carried a lesson that no badge or policy could teach. Courage sometimes comes from the most unexpected places, from a 10-year-old boy, from a loyal dog, from the simple act of asking for help when it is needed most. And for Ethan, the boy who had stepped bravely into the station that morning, the weight of responsibility had finally transformed into hope. He wasn't alone. Rex wasn't going anywhere, and the family that Daniel Harper had loved and protected would now be cared for in return. The room exhaled. A chapter of grief closed, replaced by the first rays of relief and renewed strength. The story that began with a question, "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" had ended with something far greater: affirmation, loyalty, and the knowledge that true heroes never leave those they love behind. The news of Ethan's plea and the captain's decision spread through Springfield faster than anyone could have imagined. By mid-morning, neighbors, local business owners, and even former colleagues of Daniel Harper began arriving at the police station. Some brought cards, others baked goods, small gifts, or donations to help the Harper family get back on their feet. Ethan and his mother watched in quiet awe. For weeks, the family had felt isolated in their grief and financial struggles, but now the community's warmth and generosity created a sense of belonging that neither had realized they were missing. "I didn't expect this," Ethan whispered to his mother as he knelt beside Rex. The German Shepherd pressed his head into the boy's lap, steady and reassuring. His mother shook her head, tears glistening in her eyes. "Neither did I, Ethan, but people remember the good we do, and your dad's spirit is here with us." At the police station, Captain Morales and Sergeant Lewis coordinated the influx of community members. Local business owners offered free services, dog food, vet checkups, even minor repairs for the family home. The department organized a fund to support the Harpers, ensuring that all contributions would directly cover living expenses, education, and medical costs. Meanwhile, Rex received the attention he deserved. Officer Carter and Ramirez checked the dog's harness and ceremonial gear, preparing for the upcoming honorary ceremony. Rex, patient as ever, sat quietly, ears twitching at every sound, tail resting gently on the floor. Though he had faced armed suspects and tracked criminals through treacherous terrain, he seemed to sense that this moment required dignity, patience, and composure. The ceremony was scheduled for Saturday morning at the station's front courtyard. Local media outlets had learned of the story but were briefed carefully by Captain Morales. The focus was on loyalty, family, and honor, not pity or sensationalism. The station courtyard filled with officers, neighbors, and family friends, all gathered to celebrate Daniel Harper's legacy and Rex's continuing role as a K-9 officer. Ethan stood near the front, clutching Rex's leash. His mother held his other hand, still wiping away tears. Rex remained calm, sensing the gravity of the moment. Captain Morales stepped up to the podium, microphone in hand, his gaze sweeping over the assembled crowd. "Today," Morales began, voice steady, "we honor a man who gave his life in service to this community, Officer Daniel Harper. But today is not only about loss. It is about legacy, and it is about family." He paused, letting the words sink in. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He glanced down at Rex, who nudged him gently as if offering reassurance. Rex, Morales continued, was Daniel's partner. Together, they saved lives, protected our community, and showed the kind of loyalty that is rare and precious. Today, We recognize Rex not just as a dog, but as an honorary lifetime K-9 officer of the Springfield Police Department." Applause rippled through the crowd. Ethan's mother hugged him tightly. Tears ran freely, but they were tears of relief and pride, not fear or grief. Ethan stepped forward to accept a ceremonial collar and badge for Rex, symbolizing his new honorary status. The dog sat obediently as the badge was clipped onto his harness. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, acknowledging the bravery and loyalty of both the boy and the dog. After the ceremony, local news crews interviewed Morales and several officers, all emphasizing the themes of community, family, and honor. Ethan's mother spoke quietly to reporters, sharing how much the support had meant to them. "It's overwhelming," she said. "We felt lost after Daniel passed, but this shows that we're not alone, that he is remembered, that we are remembered." Ethan stood beside Rex, gently patting the dog's neck. "He's my dad's dog," he said simply, "and now he's part of our family forever." The community's response didn't stop at the ceremony. In the following weeks, donations continued to pour in. Local businesses sponsored veterinary checkups and dog food subscriptions for Rex. Schools organized fundraisers in Ethan's honor. The police department ensured that medical expenses, including routine checkups and emergency care for Rex, were fully covered. The Harper family home, which had been tight on funds, received much-needed repairs and upgrades. Neighbors came together to plant flowers in the yard, fix the fence, and repaint walls. Ethan could hardly believe the kindness surrounding him, a kindness that extended not only to him but also to Rex, the dog who had carried his father's spirit. As the days passed, Ethan and Rex settled into a new rhythm. Rex accompanied him to school drop-offs, greeted him at the door when he returned, and even accompanied his mother during evening walks. Their bond, forged through grief and strengthened by love, grew deeper with each passing day. Captain Morales often checked in, ensuring that both the boy and the dog were thriving. On one visit, he knelt beside Ethan. "You know, son," he said gently, "your dad would be proud of you, not because of bravery on the streets but because of courage in your heart." Ethan nodded, his hand brushing Rex's fur. "I just wanted to do the right thing." "And you did," Morales replied. "You reminded all of us why we serve, not just with badges, not just with training, but with heart." Rex, ever perceptive, leaned into the boy's lap as if echoing Morales' words. The dog's steady presence reminded everyone that loyalty and love are timeless, and that the bond between a boy and his father's dog could inspire an entire community. The story of Ethan and Rex spread beyond Springfield. Social media posts highlighted the bravery of the boy and the loyalty of the dog. Citizens from neighboring towns reached out, offering support, encouragement, and admiration. But the Harpers never saw it as attention-seeking. They understood that Daniel Harper's legacy had created a ripple effect, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined. Ethan began speaking to other children about responsibility, courage, and caring for animals. Rex became a symbol in the school, a living lesson about loyalty and dedication. Together, they helped teach empathy, compassion, and the importance of standing up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Through all of this, the Harper family grew stronger. What had begun as a desperate attempt to survive, Ethan's question to the captain, had transformed into a celebration of life, a community united by love, and a reminder that heroes leave behind more than memories. They leave legacies that continue to inspire and protect. And at the center of it all was Rex, the German shepherd who had faced danger alongside Daniel Harper and now stood proudly as an honorary officer, a protector, and a constant reminder that courage, loyalty, and love endure. Ethan looked down at the dog and smiled. "We did it, boy," he whispered. Rex nudged him gently as if replying, "We always will." The community of Springfield, the police department, and the Harper family had learned an unforgettable lesson. that the bonds forged through loyalty and love are stronger than loss, and that true courage can shine from the smallest hearts. The weeks following the ceremony were unlike anything the Harper family had ever experienced. Springfield, once just a place where they lived, had become a community that embraced them. Letters, gifts, and offers of help arrived daily, filling their home with warmth and reassurance. Ethan, now 10, had grown in ways that no one could have predicted. The responsibility he had felt when asking, "Sir, will you buy my dad's police dog?" had matured into something far deeper: understanding, courage, and a sense of purpose. He walked through each day with Rex at his side, the dog not just a protector but a constant source of comfort. Rex adapted seamlessly to his new life as an honorary K-9 officer. Though retired from active duty, he received regular training exercises with the department to keep his skills sharp. The police station became a second home, where he greeted officers with the familiarity of old partnerships and the gentleness required around Ethan. Every time he returned home, his tail wagged with uncontainable joy, reminding Ethan that life, though changed, was still full of love and hope. Captain Morales made it a point to check in regularly. "How's my favorite little officer doing?" he would ask, earning an eye roll and a small smile from Ethan. "Better," Ethan replied quietly, scratching Rex behind the ears. "Rex likes his new job too." "Good," Morales said, voice softening. "Your dad would be proud of both of you." The Harper family began a small memorial project in Daniel's honor. In the station lobby, a plaque was installed featuring Daniel's photo, accomplishments, and a tribute to Rex, acknowledging their work as a team and the lives they saved. It became a place for officers, visitors, and citizens to reflect on heroism, loyalty, and service. Rex's presence at the station became symbolic. New recruits were introduced to him as part of tradition, learning lessons not just about tracking or obedience, but about loyalty, courage, and the bond between handler and dog. Many officers remarked that watching Rex with Ethan reminded them why they joined the force: to protect, to serve, and to honor the families of those who had come before. At home, life was calmer but meaningful. Ethan helped his mother with chores, homework, and caring for Rex. The bond between boy and dog deepened daily. Nights were spent with Ethan reading stories aloud while Rex rested his head on the bed, ears twitching at each sound. Weekends were filled with walks, park visits, and sometimes trips to the police station, where Rex's honorary duties kept him engaged and alert. School became a source of pride and inspiration for Ethan. Teachers noticed a change in him, a confidence tempered with humility. He spoke about responsibility, the importance of kindness, and the lessons learned from his father and Rex. Classmates listened intently, inspired by the courage of a boy who had faced loss and taken action. One morning, as autumn leaves rustled through the streets of Springfield, a letter arrived at the Harper home. It was from a neighboring city's K-9 unit. They had heard about Ethan and Rex and invited them to a demonstration event, highlighting loyalty and service. Ethan read the letter aloud, eyes wide with excitement. "Mom, Rex is going to meet other K-9 teams." His mother smiled, her heart swelling with pride and relief. "Your dad would have loved this, Ethan. He'd be proud of you too." At the demonstration, Rex performed alongside active K-9 officers, showing agility, obedience, and the same sharp instincts that had made him so valuable to Daniel. Children in the audience watched with awe, some even asking if they could visit the Harper home to meet the legendary dog. Rex remained patient, regal, and attentive, each wag of his tail a reminder of his unspoken bond with both his father's memory and his boy. In the community, the Harper family became a symbol of hope and resilience. Local media occasionally featured stories about Ethan and Rex, emphasizing lessons of courage, loyalty, and love. Businesses, neighbors, and even distant supporters sent letters and gifts, inspired by the boy who had stood up when life seemed hardest. Ethan's mother reflected on how far they had come. The initial fear, the financial struggles, and the overwhelming grief seemed tempered now by the outpouring of support. She often watched Ethan and Rex together, silently grateful for Captain Morales and the department that had recognized their need for care and understanding. One crisp evening, as the sun set over Springfield, Ethan sat on the porch steps, Rex lying beside him. The air smelled of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Ethan's mother joined them, a mug of hot cocoa in hand. "Do you ever miss him?" Ethan asked softly, looking toward the fading light. "Every day," his mother admitted. "But he's here in many ways, in you, in Rex, in the love around us." Ethan leaned against Rex, pressing his cheek against the dog's fur. "I think he'd be proud of me." His mother smiled, wrapping an arm around both of them. "He is Ethan. He absolutely is." Captain Morales visited later that week to check on the family and Rex. He watched Ethan throw a ball for the German Shepherd in the yard. Rex sprinted, caught the ball, and returned it faithfully, tail wagging. Morales smiled quietly. Here was a boy who had learned courage, responsibility, and the value of asking for help, lessons his father had embodied every day. "You've done well, Ethan," Morales said softly. "I just want Rex to be happy," Ethan replied. "And he is," Morales said, watching the dog rest his head against Ethan's legs. "Because you're taking care of him, just like your dad would have wanted." As the months passed, the Harper family's story became legend in Springfield. Community members often referenced it as an example of compassion, courage, and the enduring bond between humans and animals. Schoolchildren learned about Rex's honorary K-9 status, the importance of standing up for family, and the courage it takes to ask for help. Ethan grew older, carrying his father's lessons in his heart. Rex remained by his side, a constant guardian, companion, and symbol of loyalty. Together, they faced challenges, celebrated victories, and honored Daniel Harper's memory every single day. The German Shepherd, once a partner in police operations, now became a teacher in his own right, teaching a boy and a community about courage, devotion, and the enduring strength of love. Years later, when Ethan looked back, he understood fully why he had asked the question that morning at the police station. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about survival. It was about connection, loyalty, and family. And because he had acted with honesty and courage, the community of Springfield had responded in kind, weaving a legacy that would endure for generations. Rex lay at Ethan's feet one evening, old but dignified. The dog's eyes, still sharp and intelligent, reflected trust, love, and unwavering loyalty. Ethan stroked Rex's fur gently, whispering, "We did it, boy. We kept the promise." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the quiet streets, Ethan understood what Daniel Harper had always known, that love, loyalty, and courage are stronger than loss. That heroes live on, not only in memory, but in the bonds they create. And that sometimes the bravest act is simply asking for help, trusting others, and letting the people who care honor the legacy of those we love. The Harper family, bound together by memory and loyalty, had not only survived tragedy, they had transformed it into a story of courage, community, and enduring hope. And at the heart of it all was a boy and his police dog, proving that even in the hardest times, love and loyalty could carry them forward.